So, what we're going to do here is I will go over my Templar run, which was level 70 from level 1 solo self-found under 6 hours. It took me 5 hours and 52 minutes total. It was on Breach Hardcore, and I'm going to go over the normal portion of the run, basically explaining my thoughts, what I did right, what I did wrong, what should you be on the lookout for if you're leveling a new character in a new league, or if you're looking to get into racing or something like that. Then yeah, these will be a lot of pointers, not everything because it's really difficult to talk about everything, but I'll talk about layouts, I'll talk about how to set up your character, what I'm planning at which moment, I'll talk about how to get an EXP efficiently. I'll be taking a lot of questions from the chat. I am live streaming right now to anybody who's watching this on YouTube. So I will be taking questions from the chat. And just, yeah, try to not lose my voice. So let's get started. So like I explained before, this is a Templar run. However, Templar does not get Fire Trap, and Fire Trap is a huge boost in speed for just about anybody. The end game goal of this character was to play flameblast totems, and we do switch in normal. And when you have Ancestral Bond, you can't deal damage, but traps are not considered your damage, therefore you can still do it. So right now what we're doing is we're getting a Fire Trap. We're also looking for movement speed boots at the vendor. We're looking for potential wands or scepters with the right colors just for us. And then we will be relogging onto our Templar, picking everything up from the stash, and continuing from there on. As for the vendors, what I'm looking for primarily is links. So a triple blue link, because those will be the colors for our firestorm, or scepter. And then I'm looking for a blue-blue-red also for a firestorm totem setup, and also when we switch to the flameblast totems, those are also our colors. We do get movement speed boots here, which basically set up this whole run. You can see that I de-equip my flasks. I check for items with +1 to skill gems. That's a huge boost, and we will be crafting weapons like that later on. Don't really get any of those. We do get a 3-linked scepter. Make sure to put your flasks and everything into your stash, because you can vendor 3 flasks into a higher tier flask. In this case, it's small flasks for a medium flask, which potentially can save you wisdom scrolls, which is a big deal. And as you can see there also, you don't really kill any mobs here, and you do open chests that are on the way, but you don't get too crazy with running up for chests and stuff like that. I am also picking up everything from Hillock, because a huge focus of what you're doing in Act 1 is getting transmutes and alterations. To get transmutes, you vendor unidentified, magical, or rare items. And to get alterations, you vendor identified rare items that don't have 6 affixes. With 6 affixes, they vendor for an augment. And that's mainly what we're focusing on. You do not want to use a chest piece, you do not want to use a shield, because both of those slow you down depending on the base, more or less, but either way they do give you minus movement speed, and that's just not optimal. Movement speed is key, quicksilvers are key. You can do a lot of stuff with that. Again, I am checking the vendors on both characters, picking up everything that we got from the other character. I am buying some skill gems over here, and you can see that I also saved the shield. The reason why I saved the shield is because we will be mainly focusing on armor and evasion items. If we can't get armor evasion, we will be using evasion. It builds up our entropy and allows us to fight Brutus a lot easier. So we're looking for fish scale gloves, battered helmets, a scale vest that we equip just for that fight, and in this case also we do have the shield, so we can, if we are lacking gear to do more damage to him, we can always equip the shield instead of one of the weapons if we don't have like a really good weapon, which we probably won't, to get that. Also, a little trick that I showed there is that if you have your move only bound anywhere else, so you can see that it's on my space over here, if you have it bound anywhere else other than your mouse button, you can actually run around with items in your hand, and that's really profitable because even when you're changing zones, you can immediately start running and all that sort of stuff. It is very nice. And here we're just running to Hellrake. If you see the ramp, go the other way. 90% of the time is the right way to go. We don't see the ramp over here, therefore this layout is very short. And we just try to pull Hellrake in a position where we can kind of shotgun him with Spark. Yeah. So we got him on the boat, we got a good boat spawn. Normally you might want to put him over here, but we got a good boat spawn where there's not a lot of room for the sparks to go anywhere. So if we have a crit, we can actually chain shock him and he dies really freaking fast. We did get fish scale gloves there and a scale vest, but the scale vest is blue, therefore we will be selling it for the transmute shards. Something else that you can do if you're playing Templar, you can, on the Shadow Mule that we had, again, I am checking vendors every time, and if you don't have movement speed boots, you would be checking your vendors every time. On that Shadow, you can actually do Hellrake also, right? And a lot of people ask if that's efficient. And it's based off of RNG. Most of the time it's efficient. The second Quicksilver won't really benefit you much until like almost Act 3, depending on the class that you're playing, so do keep that in mind. Essentially, if you find a Quicksilver before like Northern Forest, if you've done Bandits, muling a Quicksilver with your initial mule won't do anything. We also see a battered helmet here, which is great, and we also got an easy mudflats layout. Very easy. So we've got two of the bigger items for fighting fighting Brutus, and usually you don't really get those like prior to ledge. So we're feeling good. We're feeling good. We got the MS. We're feeling good. Our weapons are looking okay. I do have the wand basis for my weapons like I talked about before. That's why we were checking vendors so much. The blue, and also blue, red. And we will be crafting +1 to skill gems on it later on. And I will explain the recipe and everything about that later. We do get a Haku. So the thing is, when it comes to Haku and Masters in general, I get a little bit confused here, but generally if you go to the left in this layout, it's always just run to the left until you find the ledge. But when it comes to Masters, they do change your layout. The breaches change your layout, essences change your layout, so this is a lot easier when you're racing. When it's the start of a new league, it does get pretty difficult sometimes determining where you're supposed to go, because again, you get confused. And we do get a really lucky drop here, which is, the transmute's pretty lucky too. We don't have to focus as much on picking up blue items for the transmutes, but a Quicksilver, and it's a Quicksilver from a level 5 zone. So what this means is that we can roll Adrenaline on it. Adrenaline is additional movement speed, so we are focusing now on making sure that we will have enough transmutes to buy everything, and then make our Quicksilver magical, and potentially later on even spam alteration it into getting Adrenaline. I swap out my helmet there for just a little bit better colors. This one has a blue-green color, I believe, which makes for our links on our fire trap while we're running through zones. It's just better because we can attach added lightning in there. Yeah. Obviously, ledge is pretty straightforward layout, no problem. And again, we are focusing on getting those alterations and those transmutes. Also, as you can see, I am only killing big packs, and blue packs is something you also focus on. You rarely kill rares unless they're really squishy or you've critted them or something. You should rarely ever go for rares. You should mainly go for big packs that you can one-shot with a fire trap. This is easier with a Shadow. It's more difficult with a Witch. Templar's kind of a little bit in the middle, but I am using one dagger, one scepter, which doesn't exactly make for enough damage. But if you were to be lucky and have like a +1 to fire gems here on a scepter, you would be one-shotting just about anything. And then the Burning Ground would also finish things off pretty alright. So the reason why I talked about the levels is because primarily throughout the entire run, the general idea of what you're trying to do in terms of levels and where you're trying to be in terms of how many mobs you're killing is being 3 levels under the level of the zone, and then every 16 levels of your character, it's plus 1 more level. So if you're in a level 10 zone, you want to be level 7. If you... Jesus, there's a lot of pop-ups on this video. If you want to be... If you're in a level 16, or if you're a level if your character level is level 16, you want to be in a level 20 zone, yeah? And that's how it continues. When it's 32, it's 5 levels below the zone, and that's how you continue over and over. Not a lot of blue packs. We don't really have all that great density here. You can't really kill that much. You can't force it. Because you're just gonna waste a lot of time. In Act 1, the rules that I just spoke about aren't nearly as big as in the other acts. It's pretty... That's a real alert. It's pretty freaking important later on. Pretty much almost immediately when you get out of Act 2, being on the right levels is important. But also there are classes like Shadow, for instance, that can kill a lot faster, and that's a lot better. How the hell is this doing? One sec. I'll talk about that in a second, but first... You can see that we pick up the waypoint, I log out the character screen. I do this so that I can get potentially a large flask, but I felt like my gear was decent. So I didn't spend the 3 wisdom scrolls to get a large flask, but our main focus in prison is to hit level 8. The majority of it to be in lower prison, because in upper prison there are enfeeble mobs. And once we've got that level 8, you can see that I hit a fat dead end here. Therefore, I will actually log out because it is faster than running all the way back. And I also pick up a flame totem. I'm not that used to Templar still, so I do forget things like that. And yeah, we're trying to get the level 8 just so we can equip added lightning onto our spark. If we pull Brutus in a favorable spot for us, we can do the same thing we did with Hellrake, and that's pretty much the only use for our spark. You can also use it a little bit on Mervo, but spark actually does less damage than freeze pulse. It's just that it can rearm itself off of walls and past a certain duration, so I can hit things twice if you do it well. So yeah, we're just still looking for the right gear. We're trying to hit that level 8. Like I said, the majority of our level, like 7.5 at least, should be in this zone, but we're not exactly getting the packs that we want. Our zone is quite short. We haven't had many blue mobs, and we're barely hitting level 7, which is something that almost never happens, but it did happen in this run. So even if you don't get the level 8, it's not the end of the world, but do keep in mind that you will be losing a bunch of time on Brutus. And also, who are those subs, goddammit? Who subscribed? Emanator, I think? And somebody else that's not showing up? Thanks for the subs, dudes. Sorry, it's like not showing up. I do get a nice helmet over there, but I can't exactly use it because we need the colors. We need the blue colors on the helmet that I've got right now, and also it doesn't have any evasion. We are focusing on the evasion. You can see at this point that I'm in trouble when it comes to the Brutus fight. We took a while to get there. Considering we have 2 Quicksilvers, I should have been there earlier. So I didn't exactly read the layouts perfectly. And on top of it, I only have the battered helmet and the fish skull gloves. I didn't buy the large flask because I assumed my gear is going to be good enough. It wasn't. And we're in trouble. No large flask, no chest piece. I am forced into using the shield. Therefore, I'm decreasing my damage. Therefore, I'm decreasing my capability of shocking Brutus. Therefore, you know, it will make for a really tough fight. You can basically face tank him with all the things I mentioned before. And I am equipping the shield late so I don't reduce the movement speed. So something interesting that not a lot of people know about Brutus, you can see how he ran directly to me, and I put him in a spot where it's easy for me to bounce sparks. And normally with the right amount of gear, you can just simply sit there, bounce sparks off of the wall, and kill him within 15 seconds. But because of the lack of gear, that's not the case. We have to run around a lot and waste time. Which, you know, in a 6-hour run is not a big deal. But if you're doing a Brutus kill, it's significantly slower. You should never have to TP out and all that. But what I was talking about before is, you see how he ran directly into the corner? If you will perform an action, Brutus will actually perform an action also. But if you do not use an ability, Brutus will only melee you. He will not hook you, and he will not slam you. So you can really move him to any space in his room, as long as you do not perform any ability. It's not attacking him, it's just doing anything. That's why, for instance, and it also includes golems. So if you have a golem, golems will he will treat golems as you using an ability, and he will change his AI. So we're focusing on the alterations and the transmutes. You can see that I picked up almost everything I could from Brutus, just so I can get those alterations, just so I can get those transmutes. You do want to focus on picking up weapons, because with flat elemental damage, with spell damage, it can boost your damage a lot. We hit the level 8 now. We're getting the blue packs that we needed from in the other instance. A little bit unfortunate, but in a long run like this, not that big of a deal. It's good that we're getting things, because hitting level 10 and getting Flame Dash early is important. And yeah, we've got that crazy wand. The wand is 6 to 13 flat fire damage, which is like, I don't know, a lot. It's like half the damage maybe of the initial hit of a fire trap. Finding offhands like that is very important. You can see that I put the added lightning into the fire trap, and I'm basically one-shotting packs with just fire trap alone, and whatever doesn't die to the initial hit does die to the ignite. And yeah, we're just focusing on EXPing properly and trying to get that level 10 for the Flame Dash so that we can move through caverns easily. The thing is, if you don't hit level 10 in caverns, the sea witches can really stop you in your tracks due to the singing. And that's a big time waster. So we don't want that. Also, you can kill things with Flame Dash, especially if you have a strong offhand like this, and especially if you make a +1 to fire gems really early. Flame Dash is actually a very strong ability. So I'm panicking here a little bit with the amount of EXP that I have. You can see that I'm not even remotely close to 10. But we do see a breach. So to a lot of people, breaches won't be a factor if they don't. God damn it. I should totally turn that off, huh? I'm turning it off. Nevox, thanks so much for the sub, dude. I appreciate the support. Thank you, man. To a lot of people, breaches won't be a factor. And generally, you don't really do breaches. However, if you're getting really fucked over on RNG, you're not getting alterations, you're not getting transmutes, you're not getting the density that you were expecting to get, you really might want to do a breach. Sometimes they're going to be good, sometimes they're going to be bad, but generally they're a very good RNG balancer. Yeah, you will still be wasting time, but it's not a big deal, right? It's just a minute. If you're not doing a race, if you're using this to start off a league, it's not a big deal. So you've got a couple choices here. You don't have to kill Mervo to get your level 12 gems, which not a lot of people know. You only actually need to enter caverns. And whether or not you will go to town at that point depends on... You can see that I'm killing things with just Flame Dash alone, which is sick. It depends on how many alterations, if you have alterations to craft your weapons, and whether or not you have transmutes to buy all the gems that you need. And also you might need a transmute for, you know, getting that Quicksilver, or you might need a transmute to get a Jade Amulet. All of those things come into play. I have 2 transmutes. What I need is a transmute for a second Firestorm. I will be picking up 1 Firestorm from the quest. I need a Spell Totem, So again, it's 2 transmutes, even though I'm counting it wrong. That's 2 transmutes. And then I do need a transmute to make my weapon a magic weapon. Otherwise, I cannot use the recipe on it. And I need a 4th transmute to buy a Jade Amulet. Because at level 12, if you do not have any dexterity on your gear, Templar actually won't be capable, unless you pick up dexterity on the skill tree, to level up his fire trap further. So even though we've struggled a lot with getting the XP, I did not hit the level 11. You want level 11 most of the time if the density allows you, but we've been struggling with density pretty much throughout the entire run, so we can't get it. The reason why you want level 11 is just barely before level 11 your gems level up, and that's a huge damage boost. Obviously with a +1, that's basically +2 to gem levels, which is like a 60% damage boost, especially if you're including into the double bounce from the sparks and all the different abilities and degenerations that we're using. And at level 11 also with an elementalist you can pick up, with a Templar you can pick up elementalist, which is resistances, which makes the Mervo fight very safe. If you don't have a sapphire ring like I didn't here, you can actually die really easily to just one chain spear. So it's a lot of resistances, it's double dipping, degeneration damage too, which is sick. So yeah, the Mervo fight went pretty okay. We don't have a great time, and now what we're trying to do is pick up everything so that we never have to go back to Act 1 ever again. I am running out of mana here, but yeah, I'm trying to pick up all the rare items that I possibly can. You can see I'm struggling a little bit with the Tetris inventory, and you can log out here. You don't need to pick up the waypoint. As long as you've killed Mervo, you can log and the waypoint will be available. So we do have 2 alterations. We are trying to save the helmet, and you can see I vendor everything for the transmutes. We have 13 shards and 3 transmutes. Like I said before, we needed 4. We don't have that. However, we do have enough to make the +1, so you can see I buy an iron ring, I vendor it with a red gem, that gives me a ruby ring, and then I use a transmute on the wand to make it magical, and then I vendor the ruby ring, alteration, and the magic wand, which results in a +1 to fire gems wand. And I do it on this one because I will be focusing more on spell totem firestorm in this run. I was still experimenting with it, but I think generally is worth it. And the other transmutes, we buy the spell totem and we buy the second firestorm, because we self-cast 1 firestorm, which I later on will be adding conk effect into, and then we basically use the spell totem for the AoE. And we have a very powerful offhand, so that normally if you were to be able to, you would make +1 on both of your weapons if you have the alterations like I did, but I did not have enough transmutes and I did not find a magic weapon, so I am using this offhand. But this offhand is better than making 2 +1s, so that's fine. So the thing that I chose to sacrifice here, and you can also see that I am doing an essence. I will be doing essences on easy mobs. This is just a monkey. Sadly, it had soul conduit that I haven't noticed, which took a lot of time. But doing essences is basically like having an alch. It depends on if it gives you a prefix or a suffix, what you're going to use on it, what you're going to use it on. But if it's an easy to kill mob, generally you want to do it, even if, you know, you need prefixes, for instance, and the essence gives you a prefix, it's still a pretty big chance that it will give you something really nice. And we will be picking up a lot of white items throughout this run and trying to craft them into all sorts of different things. But the thing that I talked about before is what I sacrificed in this run is the Jade Amulet. So you can actually see that I cannot level my fire trap. And that's a pretty big deal early on. Making sure that you're able to level up your fire trap as a Templar especially, where you don't buy Flame Surge if you don't have the transmutes. If you can, it is nice to buy a Flame Surge for single target, but I'm already kind of struggling and I chose to go with the AoE strat with the Spell Totem that we will later on be needing anyway for the flameblast totems. Due to that, I just wasn't able to get it. It didn't drop. And yeah, we want to make sure that we will have that transmute, or we will luckily find the Jade Amulet, just so we can kill bosses somewhat okay. Otherwise, our single target is going to be just really, really, really poopy. Which it kind of is anyway if you don't use Flame Surge, in all honesty. But obviously Fire Trap is a big part of that, especially if you can link it with things. We are constantly looking for sockets, we're constantly looking for 3 links, constantly looking for 4 links. You always have to be on the lookout for those things, because they will play a big role. You have to plan the fact that we will be soon using faster casting. Probably 2 faster castings, because you want to put your Flame Dash onto there. The reasons for why I wanted the 3-link wands that I've mentioned before was because, yeah, we need Spell Totem, we need added lightning, we need faster casting, we need control destruction, we need conk effect, we need to use a Herald of Thunder, we need to use a Herald of Ice. All of those things require sockets, and you have to be planning for those immediately. If you don't, you will run out of sockets and you will be in big trouble, because you should never really... Rarely ever do you use a 3-link, like even midway through Act 1. Like on a Templar it's a little bit easier than it is, for instance, on a Shadow or on a Witch, because they generally have a harder time to getting the right colors and the right links. So on Templar it's a little bit easier, but it's still quite difficult to get a 3-link by the time you're level 18. Considering that you also need to be able to craft the right things on it, that you want the right offhand, and all that sort of stuff. It might seem, oh, it's just a 3-link. It is actually quite difficult, and if you do enough of these runs, you'll see that, you know, 4 links and 3 links just don't come. Like, maybe once in 10 runs, you actually have the right 4-link by the time you finish normal. Which can be pretty crazy to a lot of people, right? Because everybody takes 4 links for granted, but not in a solo self-found environment like this if you're trying to do a specific thing. And yeah, here I'm just making sure that I get enough EXP throughout the entire run. Like I've mentioned before, we are really struggling with EXP, so I'm trying to make a big clear. You know, I'm trying to kill all the mobs, drop in that flame totem. Trying to be really optimal with the way I'm killing things, not overkilling, because that's one of the biggest time wasters throughout the entirety of runs. Here I sadly only have 1 TP scroll that I don't want to use for opening that box, because you can't leave a TP, open the box and TP out at the same time, even if it's a freeze box, which makes it safe. But I only have 1 TP, so I want to make sure that I have it for, you know, some difficult stuff that we might run into. And I don't have Wisdom Scrolls to ID it, but generally you want to be opening boxes. Boxes are pretty freaking sick. I have a Torah that extends our layout a little bit, but we're not concerned about that because we need EXP. We need a lot of EXP. The best thing you can do, if you can optimally kill mobs and hit level 16 when you finish Weaver, and then you're killing Kraton and Alira, if you can have level 16 then, it's amazing, because you're able to equip your heralds at that point. It's actually a huge damage boost, but it's very difficult to do without playing something like Templar or Shadow. I don't think I get it in this run. I don't think I even come close, and that's partially why my Act 2 isn't nearly as fast as it should be, because I am killing mobs that I normally wouldn't due to the fact that we just haven't found enough blue packs. Here, yeah, you just want to bait Fidelitas. I did find a Topaz Ring. You do want a Topaz Ring, and you already want to be setting up the Topaz Rings for your Act 3 sewers. But I didn't have a Wisdom Scroll to ID it, so I'm kind of struggling here a little bit, you know. You can put a Totem to the side, and usually he's going to go for the Totem. This time he didn't choose to do so, and we had to extend the fight a little bit. So after you've killed Fidelitas, you can pick up your Herald. But we're not yet level 16, so we're not really going to bother with that. And I want to kill Weaver, and I want to make sure I have enough alterations for all the gems that I've mentioned before. So you can constantly see me opening chests and trying to find rare items and IDing favorable blue items like weapons and boots specifically, and also white items that I need to replace. I'm also picking up chromatic items because getting a 4-link is really difficult, and it will come into into play. So here, the breach actually messed up our zone. Normally there would be a passage here, but the breach changed our zone, so these are the type of struggles that you can go through. But if you're not really like very much overlay focused, or not overlay, but like layout focused, it's not that big of a deal. Yeah, and then again, after Weaver, you're able to get your level 18 gems, so we want those alterations real bad. Also with this character, my normal was a lot slower than what we possibly could have done, because I was really focusing on setting my character up for the latter difficulties like Cruel and Merciless. So I was really trying to get a lot of gear, I was trying to get a lot of portal scrolls, a lot of wisdom scrolls, make sure that I'm doing well on levels, and just setting myself up. I do run into some problems in Act 3, but I'll talk about that later. Even in this act, I'm already kind of running into some problems, because my links aren't exactly where they should be. I'm incapable of making a proper +1 on my offhand weapon. The weapon that we found in Act 1 is quickly wearing off, and I don't have the right colors or the right links. I'm constantly on the look for blue items, and you can already see how difficult it is to get something like that. Yeah, I'm finally vendoring. I want to make sure, thinking about that, you know, getting a belt. I haven't had a belt yet. Still keeping the helmet that we found earlier, but because of the blue gems, I have to keep it. And yeah, with 2 alterations, I choose to pick up the Conk effect, and then from the vendor, I get the Herald device, and I believe faster casting. Yeah, so we still need 2 more for another faster casting, and a controlled destruction if we have the right sockets. Yeah. They're being mean to you. It's okay, dude. You'll be fine. You'll be fine. And yeah, we are level 15 on a Templar. Usually you would be 16 here, but it's just not something you can fight. Sometimes you just have to waste this time. And here I YOLO wand because it has the blue sockets. It was an Essence of Woe, I believe, which is a prefix on a wand from what I remember. I can't actually remember. So yeah, I was just really desperate for a 3-link, because right now we're using a 3-link totem, but my self-cast Firestorm is only a 1-link, which is really shitty damage, and it's not in a +1. So that is what is very much slowing me down. The constant thought, I'm constantly thinking. You want to stay focused on killing mobs efficiently. You can see that I only put down 1 totem, and if you look at my EXP bar down here, you know, I'm running and I'm still gaining EXP even from mobs off screen. You can see I dropped the totem, right? Should be some EXP coming in. There you go. So I don't see the mobs dying, but I do see that I am killing them. I am getting the EXP, and if something important drops from them, my filter will let me know that I need to go back and pick something up. And yeah, the Kraton fight, you want to pull him to the back. His AI is very random. Generally, you want to pull him to the back just because if you're standing next to a rock or something, you know, with Firestorm, or if you're using something like Lightning Trap, you can sort of shotgun him, but it's really hard to pull off with Firestorm because the fight is so random, and then we don't have Lightning Trap because we're Templar life, yeah? Here we're going to Alira. Nowhere near level 16, nowhere near enough blue items. Something interesting about the layout for this is that Alira is always on the side of the road where the waypoint is, and Weaver is always on the opposite side of the road of where the waypoint is. So that is something that you can save a lot of time. You can see that normally people would run all the way down the road, try to find the crack in the road, and then follow the crack to where Alira is. We don't have to do that if you have that knowledge. You just always know whenever you hit the waypoint, you go the other way. With Alira, she has an AI that forces her to run away from you if you are close to her. And that also includes like totems and summons and all that sort of stuff. So try to just keep a certain distance away from her, and then that way she won't be running around. She's just going to stand in one spot and burn from the fire trap and all that sort of stuff. The thing that I also didn't explain in Act 2 that I guess I can mention now is the reason why we go left first is just because of the mob density. That's why we go left, we pick up the waypoint, and then we go to the right. There's like density and levels included into something like that. We need to be level 12 for that to be efficient. Or, well, I guess level 11 is also worth it. But running through Riverways, because it's such a big zone, gives us a better idea of how many mobs we will need to kill in Sins and Crossroads. And yeah, we're doing fine. We're still trying to get that level 16. We will be helping Oak over here, because I don't really care about the future of this character. If you're playing a life build, obviously you want to help Oak. And Carve actually has a really interesting video about the layouts in this zone. You can save a ton of time in this zone. The entrance indicates where you need to go. So basically, if the entrance is to the right side, you always need to go directly down. So you can see I'm going down. I'm going to hit the wall over here, and that's where we need to be. If the entrance is like at the bottom, then you always have to go up like this. And when you hit the road, the river, just go left. Most of the time you're just immediately gonna hit the waypoint. If not, then just go left, and it's gonna be right there. And then if it's to the left, then it can be really anywhere all around the circle. If the entrance is to the left. I pick up the waypoint just in case. My text is also fucked up. And as for the passives, I am heading to Elemental Overload. My plan before was to pick up Orb of Storms and pick up Elemental Overload and fight that. Fight Vol with that. With the right links and with Firestorm, you can actually kill Vol pretty fast. It isn't faster than Flame Surge, I don't think, but it's pretty freaking good. It's pretty freaking good. So Vol Ruins isn't nearly as complicated as people think. Generally, you just pick a left or right, and based off of that, you can tell whether in which corner of the map it is. Here, I get a little bit fucked over, and I got confused at this point because usually that should be a wall. However, there is something in this zone that's changing up the zone. And rewatching this now, it is really obvious where I need to go. I need to go to the right and up, but you know, when you're doing all this running, don't be too critical of yourself. You will often just not spot things that you can normally spot running over this. But yeah, the reason why people think Vol Ruins is just so difficult is because, and I mean, I don't really get lost, right? But I do waste some time. But it's not that bad for me because I still need the EXP that I didn't get before. I am hitting level 17 here. On a decent run, you can usually hit level 18 prior to entering Northern Forest, and you can see that I'm not even remotely close. And this is with wasting a lot of time on overkilling mobs because of the EXP struggle. But yeah, it's difficult to kind of get Vol Ruins. That's why I also recommend people try out racing, because due to the masters and corrupted zones still happen in races, but like a combination of a master and a corrupted zone can really fuck up your layout like real bad. But there's really only basically only 3 layouts, and you can see that I finally get the Jade. This whole time I was 2 shards away. I was constantly trying to get that Jade to level up my Fire Trap. It didn't happen. That's why my single target and everything was quite mediocre. And I finally have a Jade now, and I can continue to level my Fire Trap. But yeah, if you run a race, then you don't have all those factors like a Breach and an Essence and Masters, and it's a lot easier to learn zones. So if you're really frustrated with zones like that, just do a couple races and you'll immediately understand what you need to do in the layout. I'll sometimes talk on stream how to do it, but there's just no time to talk about it right now. So, Northern Forest, this is a farm zone for a lot of races, and for good reason. It has a absurdly high spawn rate of shrines and especially chests. So, the way you want to prepare for this zone, and also density, the density in this zone is really crazy, and it's also easy to find blue packs, right? Not in our case in this run, but on average. So you want to make sure that you have enough wisdom scrolls. You want to make sure that you are always able to open chests safely if you don't have a freeze removal flasks or something like that. And yeah, you can see that I even, to the point where I even picked up I was struggling with colors so much that I had to pick up because I still wasn't able to equip my heralds despite being level 18, that I had to pick up a good base with 3 sockets, not even linked. And I was trying to get the right blue colors so that I could 2-link my self-cast Firestorm, but even without that, due to this, I am able to equip this. And I finally have the transmutes, and I actually get adrenaline on my flask. Normally, you would have more alterations and more transmutes, but this wasn't. And the more I watched this really wasn't the craziest of runs in terms of RNG outside of the Quicksilver drop and now hitting the adrenaline, which will save me a ton of time. And I do have the Elemental Overload. Another thing about the sockets is exactly that. Yes, I wanted to have enough sockets to be able to equip the Orb of Storms because it's a constantly hitting thing that you can leave on the ground, and that really allows you to proc Elemental Overload quite easily for the entirety of the Vol fight. And that's 40% double dipping multiplier for your damage, which is a fucking lot of damage. It's a lot. You can see that I'm just constantly struggling. I need Jeweler Orbs, I need something to get sockets so that I can at least 2-link my Firestorm, but it's not happening for the longest time. And yeah, really, if all of those things came together, this Vol kill probably would have been at least like 3-4 minutes faster. I'm not playing perfectly, obviously you can never play perfectly, but I am doing my best with what I've got right here, and that's partially why I'm uploading this run, because yeah, it was played pretty alright, and there were a lot of tricky situations with the gearing, and it is something that you always have to think about. You constantly need a plan. You always have to look into the future. I feel like the thing that people really fail at when they're trying to level fast is not having an idea of what they need to do next. Because the base of learning how to race or learning how to level fast isn't that complicated, right? You gotta do these like couple things, even though I'm talking a lot about what I'm doing. You only need to do these couple things, and you know, you'll be fine. But you need the experience of what to do based off of the RNG that you get. You know, getting a second Quicksilver highly changes your playstyle a lot. Not getting a Jade Amulet, same thing, changes your playstyle a lot. Getting 20% movement speed boots early changes that a lot. You know, the way you're killing mobs, if you find a really crazy offhand, changes a lot. It changes everything a ton. And you can save multiple minutes and sometimes even hours if you know how to adapt properly to what you're offered at the time. A important gearing thing for Ancient Pyramid in general, I didn't bother with it here, but it is a mistake. You should have a Sapphire Ring. That's why you should save your Sapphire Ring from Mervo. I just didn't find enough Iron rings, and Templar kind of has it easy against Mervo. I think Templar and Marauder, and maybe Duelist too, are the only ones who don't really give one-shot all that often by the Spear Chain from Mervo. So I kind of had it easy, and I didn't find enough Iron Rings. But, and you can even see that I'm not using my added lightning. I have it in my offhand weapon just so it continues to level. And yeah, I was trying to get the Topaz Rings. The Topaz Rings are huge for the Vol fight. If you don't have, you know, over 50 lightning resistance with the amount of survivability that we get here, he can actually sometimes one-shot you. And if not, then he can 2-shot you. Getting stunned from his ads or something like that, it's a big deal. Making sure to equip Conk Effect here is a big deal, but no sockets, so I couldn't. So my Vol kill is actually quite slow. Imagine this with Conk Effect, with faster casting, not wasting my mana like there. Like, my mana regenerates faster than I'm capable of depleting it, which results in flask loss and all that sort of things. If all those things come together, you can really save multiple minutes, and it revolves around you having a plan and focusing on the right things, and also getting a little bit not necessarily unlucky. Here I just put down a totem. I think I have Conk Effect on my Firestorm totem, but yeah. And here they changed this recently. You can actually log out. You don't have to wait for this to open. You can log out or teleport out or whatever, and you will have the waypoint to the Act 3. So keep that in mind. If you want to pick up all the loot from Vol, you can always do that and then log out, and you will have the exit. So yeah, I'm still looking for a 4-link here. You can see I'm getting chromatics. I did drop an Aberrat's Horn, and I will be using it. Sadly, it again has only one socket. But it is just slightly better than my weapon. In general, when it comes to this run, something that I'd say above average lucky is weapons. Because usually you don't have any offhands. I had not amazing offhands, but decent offhands. Something that does help. And that usually doesn't happen. Usually you're just playing with, a +1, maybe 2 +1s if you get the transmutes. And that's it. And you don't want that. So here, despite not having the sockets, it was a little bit better to think about this stuff because I did have, some of the offhands. And also what's cool about Aberrath is that it has crit, which basically is chance to ignite for bosses, which comes a lot into play once you equip the Firestorm. And yeah, I believe I'm level 19 or level 20 now. Generally, you want to be around level 20 when you kill Vol. And I do forget to split the loot, so don't worry about that all that much. Oh shit, Rich, thanks for the sub, man. The alerts aren't on, but I really appreciate it. I don't know, maybe some people have some questions or something. These zones really aren't that complicated right now. You want to make sure basically throughout the entirety of Act 3 that you have level 24 when you're entering docks. That's like a big thing. If you're playing Shadow, it's very important to have flameblast when you're fighting Dominus. In the case of Templar, you'll still do fine with a firestorm. You can see that that's a pretty easy mob, so I go for it. Also, he has a greed essence, which is life, which is nice. Yeah. I kind of forgot what I was talking about. Am I racing to 100 next league? I'll be playing to 100. I don't think I'm going to race to 100. What would be a good offhand? A good offhand is something that has a ton of flat elemental damage, cast speed, spell damage. Flat elemental damage being the key factor for everything. I mean, your best case scenario would be to get a 4-link. You can see that I picked up that 3-link just because I am struggling constantly with the sockets. So, to the point where right now I'm even like, okay, I will use a chest piece if I have to. Because having faster casting on your Firestorm that paired up with like Control Destruction or something, it's just too much damage. So, versus, getting 5 less or 3 less movement speed from a chest piece. So, that was partially the downfall of this run, that you shouldn't be forced into using a chest piece if you have Jeweler Orbs and if you're able to get a 3-link on your weapon, but we couldn't. So I will be using a chest piece way too early in this run. Because in normal, you really only need a chest piece for some places in Act 4. Even if you're playing on hardcore, if you're playing well, you'll be fine. And like in Act 3, it's literally just Lunaris, where you're looking for evasion chest pieces just so you can live through the whippers and the titty bitches and all that sort of stuff. Outside of that, you don't want any chest pieces in Act 2, Act 1, and mostly Act 3, like I said before. Also for the Dominus fight, you can use a chest piece. Makes it very easy to face tank it, but even without that, you should have a sufficient amount of TPs to do the fight well. And I'll also be showing a strategy of how to do Dominus pretty alright here. Yeah. So those topaz rings that I've talked about before really come into play into the sewers. You want capped resistances in sewers, capped lightning resistances to be specific, because dischargers are fucking crazy. If you can't get that, just make sure that throughout the all 3 levels you at least have 2 topaz rings. And even with that, even with capped lightning resistance, sometimes, you know, you're just gonna get a quick rare discharger with powerful crits, and even if your capped resistances, you know, he's gonna get one charge and he's going to one-shot you. That's just life. You can obviously dodge them. You can obviously just not kill the mobs around them. There are plenty of ways of doing this the right way without dying. But if you want to continue to kill mobs, and that's pretty sketchy stuff right there too, so I'm gonna run away from that. If you want to continue to kill mobs, you have to be very, very, very careful in sewers. Because it happens a lot. Sewers is one of those zones where it's a run breaker. If you're racing. If you're not, you can be extra cautious. You can pick up some life nodes earlier. You know, in this case, it's like partially a race, partially a league starter, partially something. So, something interesting about sewers. If the bust is before the waypoint, you have the option of the exit being to the left, immediately to the left, and in most cases it is. If the bust is after the waypoint, and you can always see when the bust is before the waypoint, it will only ever be to the right. So something where you can save yourself a lot of time, because sometimes I see people going to the left, you know, if they didn't see the bust before the waypoint, and it can actually waste you a lot of time. Sewers can be a very tricky zone with heavy dead ends. In this zone, obviously everybody knows it. The simple way of doing this is to look at the corpses. There are other things that you can do, and again, Carve has a very good layout guide for that. But this is, again, another zone like Northern Forest and Sins and partially Docks and Dried Lake will be the zones that I'll be talking about this. This is the zone where we get the fat XP. You can see that I already leveled up here. These mobs grant a lot of EXP. The density in this zone is crazy. It's a simple layout zone. If you know what you're doing, and even if you don't exactly know what you're doing, you're just looking at the corpses, and that way you know where the exit is. I'll show the corpse sometime in the future. I'm kind of going around because, again, I am trying to get as much EXP as possible. It does also have an elite pack. This elite pack is like, every mob is like 5 times the EXP of a normal mob, if not more even. So that's a crazy amount of EXP. They are quite difficult to kill, and they do have Arctic armor, so they counter things like firestorm. But it's just such a thick pack that it's difficult to pass up on. And is this all self-found? This is fully self-found. You can see the corpse right there. Those corpses are what we're looking for. They're an indication of where we need to go through the buildings to get to the end of the zone. But if you know what you're doing, you can pass up on a lot of that and pick up a huge amount of mobs here and get a chunk of EXP. Because we are making sure that no matter what, we will be level 24 in Docks, or at least extremely close to it, yeah? Extremely close to it. In Act 1 and 2, why did you skip the quest for the extra points? So, for a speedrun like this, you don't really need to do that. The points just don't really do anything for you. However, there are things that you might want to pick up that will grant you EXP and all that, and especially later on, if you want to do skill points in Cruel and Merciless, usually it is worth it because you need the EXP anyway. But in here, we just don't really need it, and because we're constantly on that EXP chase, it's just not efficient to do those zones. We do have a pretty good setup to do it, though. You can see that finally I have something, and we're actually replacing the Aberrats. We've got a wand with spell damage. Not an amazing wand, but we can finally here, I think, tooling my firestorm or something. I don't exactly know what I'm doing. Maybe I even forget about doing it. I'm even working in the chest piece, so I'm really struggling here, you know. Checking out the Scarlet Raiment. I do want a chest piece for Lunaris, so I'm looking at evasion, armor chest pieces, evasion chest pieces, whatever I can get my hands on. And Yeah, and here I have a pretty good setup. I could have 20 MS boots, but I do have an Adrenaline Quicksilver and I have a regular Quicksilver. Something that's very important also about your regular Quicksilver that a lot of people really forget about is Transmuted. The regular Quicksilver can only have two different suffixes. One is block and the other one is resists. Which is big, because it's very easy to get a, 20 plus resistance flask, and it can only ever roll additional charges, and any roll of the charges is always above 10, which grants you another Quicksilver use. So you can get a lot of resistances from just your Quicksilver, and if you use it well, it is a very powerful tool throughout the entire run. It's basically like a granite for elemental damage, because most of the time you won't have the thing. So here I use a little bit of a trick here, I think. Yeah, okay, so you can set up a portal if something's freezing, because that box was a freezing box. So that's really sketchy, right? You obviously want to always stay on the move. You can see that I even go to the vendor here because I am expecting quite a bit of items to drop. You can see that I'm still not using the life double resist helmet. Because now I don't have green sockets, and I will be buying a bunch of things here. I do have my alterations, so I think I'll be buying Controlled Destruction and another faster casting, maybe just Controlled Destruction. Yeah, and that's exactly what we needed before for the firestorm. I think I'm using faster casting with the firestorm now. But yeah, you can put up a portal, click the portal, and there's a short delay before your character actually gets put to town. So you can click the portal, click the freezing box, you will get teleported to town despite being frozen, and then that way you can still open up a freezing box without having to have a freeze removal thing. Yeah? Ranger will have any connection with this kind of speed leveling? You can totally speed level with a Ranger. No problem. It's just different, I mainly do casters. I used to do like attack-based characters, and I wanted to learn Ranger, but just don't have enough time to do that right now. Maybe in the future, we'll see. Right now I'm learning Templar. And yeah, you can see me killing a lot of stuff here. You can see me constantly picking up those blue weapons, because a weapon doesn't have to be rare to be good in PoE at all. Obviously rare weapons have the potential to be the most amazing ones, but unless you have a very good weapon, most of the time you can always find a blue weapon that would have flat elemental damage on it that will even double your damage sometimes. That's how powerful it is in, mid-cruel and entirety of normal. For show. We're trying to hit that level 24. We're trying to not risk things with breaches, but we are getting the EXP. We're on a pretty good pace, so no problem, at least in terms of EXP. Obviously the run could always be played better, but you have an idea that even if, you're not playing perfectly and all that, you're still doing quite well, Throughout this entire run, if I had a little bit better RNG and if I played things a lot better than I have, from that 552, I could have shaved off another 25-30 minutes even, which, that's a lot of time. That's a lot of time. And here, in Battlefronts, I picked up the waypoint before I went to Solaris. That's just so I don't have to rerun it. I don't have to rerun the zone, right? Because I would have to run from Marketplace if I didn't pick up the waypoint. You can also drop a TP in Battlefronts, but it's the riskier strategy. Nowadays, the Battlefronts waypoint is always at the same spot. In the past, you would drop a TP on the ground and then run through Solaris, get to the waypoint, and then use the TP that you had set up in Battlefronts. You can use this in a couple places in the game, but in here it was the strongest thing. But the risk, obviously, is that if you log out or disconnect or whatever, you will have to rerun the entire thing. Again, struggling a little bit with the inventory. Want to make sure. At this point, the biggest thing is alterations for rolling instant flasks. Those things are fucking amazing for dealing with comb and the resto, so I want to make sure that I have enough alterations to roll my level 13 flasks. Here I hit a blue pack, and you can see me hitting the level 24. So, despite wasting a lot of time, because I was killing significantly more crappier packs than I normally would have, you can see me picking up still those 3-link blue items and still trying to do something with them, you know, throwing alchemies on them, throwing chaos on them, maybe even. Probably not. I'm probably gonna be saving that for later because my weapons aren't that bad. It's just the links. But we're not quite there. Arthurek. I always read your name wrong. Arthrotek. Thank you for the 13 months. Fuck. I always read your name wrong, but I really appreciate that, man. Yeah. What are we doing now? We're just trying to get EXP. On a Templar, we're not as focused for hitting level 28 for Dominus as we are on something like a Shadow and a lot of other classes that gain access to skill gems that do a lot of single target. Because Firestorm is a decent single target. It's not as good as Flameblast, but it's decent. And obviously the point of this is to save time. So if we're wasting time on killing too many mobs, where we could be killing mobs elsewhere in a higher level zone and a zone with bigger density and all that sort of stuff, then what's the point, really? But the minimum that you need to be in normal dried lake, and you can catch up on levels there really well, the minimum is level 26. And if you're not 26 in normal dried lake, I highly recommend you go back to docks or something like that to get that EXP, or, you know, be at least in aqueducts. Make sure that you're able to farm in aqueducts. Aqueducts is one level lower, so that would be pretty okay EXP too, but generally in my case, docks is better EXP than aqueducts. A good docks layout if you know how to farm docks. Yeah, we get the amulet. We make sure that we pick up the waypoint, obviously, to progress to Dominus. I'm kind of looking through my gear here because I'm trying to get that fire resistance for Gravicious. We will be killing Gravicious for those level 28 skill gems. And it can be a pretty tough fight, so do keep that in mind. Especially if you are physical based. He has Molten Shell that does a fuck ton of damage and casts Flammability. With two of those things, even with a Ruby Ring, you can just get one shot. And he's got some pretty nasty ignites, obviously, also with the Flammability. I don't really play this all that well. I overuse my flasks, so I think I have to TP out here or something. Yeah, you can see that. That crit is kicking my ass, man. It's kicking my ass. I'm just barely trying to get him. I'm burning. It's a pepperoni. He dies as I TP out, but that means that I can still pick up all my gems. I won't be using them until 28, but from level 24 we can use Flammability. You pretty much only use the Flammability on Piety and Dominus. So it's not a big deal to pick it up earlier because you're not really fighting any bosses. But that's another thing that you have to keep in mind, that you will be equipping an additional curse. Or even more, you know, maybe you're doing a library for Blasphemy and all that sort of stuff. Always remember to get those right sockets. Gotta get the right shit. Also, I don't know why this thing doesn't close up. There you go. Close the loading bar. Okay, so Lunaris 1 is another one of those zones where you can get crazy XP, primarily because the density is insane, but also the level of the zone. Lunaris 2 and Lunaris 1. Lunaris 1 is the easier of the two and less RNG dependent, in my opinion, but you can see that the density is really nuts, and I can tell you that this is a really shit Lunaris. Like, I was extremely disappointed with this one. I was hoping for a ton of EXP here, but yeah, we're getting very few mobs. Usually, I'd say more than 50% of the time in the first part of Lunaris, you get a chest, and that's a ton of EXP too. What?
Just
Cool, congrats. And yeah, you can see me like searching for mobs. I'm crying, where are all the mobs? Where are all the mobs? But at this point, it's becoming pretty clear that I'm not gonna hit level 28 for Dominus. And yeah, Lunaris 2 will be the big teller of that, but yeah, it is becoming pretty clear. Obviously, the higher level you are for all of this content, the better density you've got, the faster you can kill things, and the faster you deal with bosses due to gem levels. So you always want those levels, even if it's not just for the EXP breakpoints. And yeah, in here, want to make sure to have some evasion, want to make sure to have some fire res, want to make sure to have those topaz rings that we've talked about throughout the entire run. Just to deal with piety. There is a strategy that allows you can see that I'm still picking up iron rings because I can vendor those for anything that I want. That's why I kept those other gems this whole time. Because if I need a topaz ring, I just vendor the Viper Strike and the iron ring, and bam, there's a topaz ring right there with the right item level, and I don't have to buy it from the vendor or find it. Yeah, so you want to set yourself up with those topaz rings just so you don't die. There is a strategy for Piety where you don't have to deal with any of her forms besides the lightning that she will randomly shoot at you. So I don't think I use it in this run, but I'll explain it when we get there. Basically, Piety and Dominus are very cheesable fights. Very, very cheesable if you know what you're doing. But right now we're still looking for Piety. I'm still constantly, you know, checking for those blue packs, trying to get that EXP. Slowly getting there. Maybe, but not. It's a topaz. Viper Strike plus Iron Ring is a sapphire not? No, it's a topaz ring. Blue gems with an iron ring are sapphires, green gems are topazes, and red gems are ruby rings. So, you know, if you're playing a shadow, for instance, and you need +1 to lightning gems, then you would vendor the Viper Strike that you get with an iron ring for a topaz and sell it with an alteration blue wand and get your shit. Very nice. Also, I don't know, a tip I guess for Lunaris is that you always want to go up the stairs, right? A lot of people just run around kind of pointlessly. You always want to go up these stairs, make sure to always head up. And it was a volatile. I was actually really lucky with volatiles throughout this run. You always want to be checking for volatiles. I haven't hit anything bad. That was the first like really bad one because it was a quick whipper mob with volatile. I think of a resistance that I didn't have all that much of, but yeah. Here we go, there's a blue pack. You can see my hopes are, well, you can't see because my cam is over it, but my hopes are going up here. I'm like, oh, maybe I might hit 28 after all, you know? My Lunaris 2 was pretty decent. Not because it had great density, but because we just spent so much time in it. So I might still get it. Spoiler alert, I don't. But we're getting in the right mindset. We're thinking constantly about how do we deal with piety efficiently, how do we not die, what items I need to equip, what sort of setup I need to have on my gems. We're constantly thinking about it, we're constantly planning, you know. When should I switch to flameblast totems? How long should I continue to use the firestorm? Is the firestorm better than the flameblast at this time? How much cast speed do I need to change it? You know, this is a run without ascendancies, so that changes a lot. I think I'm actually still 26 here, now that I think about it. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I'm still 26 here. Yeah, I have to be. So yeah, that makes sense why I don't hit my level. I was like, wait, if I'm 27, how the fuck did I not hit my level? I definitely didn't. But yeah, it was good. You can see blue packs, everything. It was the very, very nice. And yeah, pretty sketchy, always up here, but not a big deal. When do you do normal lab when solo self-finding? I'll explain that in a second. Okay, so yeah, we swap our stuff a little bit, but my gear is pretty good, so we don't have to worry about that too much. And yeah, so the cheese strategy with Piety is that anytime you portal out the circular things over here that she steps into, the shrine things, they actually disappear. Also, if she is in a form that's not her natural one, and you will TP out, she will go back to her normal form. So that way, whenever you see her get into a circle, whenever you see her running towards a circle, and you want to play it really safe, you can just teleport out, and she's just gonna be standing there in her normal form for a couple seconds until she, you know, decides her next action and that sort of stuff. I don't do that here because my gear is pretty freaking good, so I just didn't want to waste any time on that. And yeah, that's just the way it is. Things will never be the same. That is a very cheese strat you can do, but you don't usually have to resort to it unless you're trying to save time by not picking up items, or despite picking up a ton of items, your RNG is just a shit. Rigged run, yeah. Okay, about the ascendancy thing, it very much depends on what sort of ascendancy class you are. I would say that if you're a Saboteur, Inquisitor, Elementalist, and Necromancer, for the classes that I know, which is mostly casters, and you can see that I go back to pick up alterations. For those classes, on a hardcore run, I'm going to use the Aberrat's Horn because I had better weapons. The Aberrat's is just not that great of a weapon as people think. I usually get at least 700 life, and then get Enfeeble or Temp Chains, mostly Enfeeble. Sometimes I'll have like a blind Flame Totem, for instance, and that's when I do my lab. However, you do have to keep in mind that obviously having double Quicksilvers, obviously having a Quicksilver and a Silver Flask, having a lot of movement speed on your boots, all of those things are a big factor into running trials. You can save a lot of time with something like that if you're playing solo self-fun, right? You don't have anybody else to run that shit for you. So you really don't want to run trials until you're at a point where you can run them fast, and then yeah, if I meet the requirements that I've mentioned before, I will do the lab as soon as possible, because oftentimes this isn't the case for classes that have to do library, but oftentimes people disregard the amount of EXP that you can get out of a lab. Usually a normal lab run will grant you like 2 levels. So what a lot of people do is they hit like level 28, 29 even, if you're really overkilling for Dominus, and then they will stay in normal Dried Lake until like 32, even 33 some people. What I try to do is to progress at 30 or 31 if I'm really over leveled. And because of that, you have to stay in Dried Lake for a little bit longer. And you know, you can just run lab instead. So despite the lab, at most with the trials, if you're playing well, taking like 20 minutes, it's like 15 to 20 minutes, you will get that time back because it's not really 15 to 20 minutes to just get your ascendancy. You want to make sure that you have enough cold resistance here, by the way. The freeze pulsers have like a high crit bracket, so they will crit you a lot. There's also the, you know, frogs, they also crit and freeze you a lot, so you want to make sure that you just have enough cold res to not suffer from that too much. But at the same time, in the second level of that zone, as you saw before, you can see me getting frozen here, but due to the cold res, I'm able to get out pretty fast, and due to my Quicksilver Flask also being rolled, I can just pop it, you know, and I get extra tanky for the time. You want to get lightning resistance for that boss from the prior zone. The boss is pretty nasty. His AI targets things that aren't you. So what's tricky about that is that if you place a totem, or even if you throw a trap or a mine, he will actually throw his traps and mines on top of that shit. And all of it will proc. So you might be in a situation where you've already ran past the boss, but you have a totem or something behind, and he will actually throw shit onto it, and his lightning trap has a huge damage bracket. Like, it's ridiculous. So if you don't have enough lightning res, if you don't dodge it properly, if you don't run, like, he will fucking kill you. So keep that in mind. It's another thing that's a big run killer for this. And here I'm 27 and a half. I'm like, maybe I'm gonna hit 28, but I'm finding all the entrances really fast. I'm not really getting good density. Killing mobs in upper scepter is total cancer. I mean, it's terrible, right? You've got freezing mobs, you got things with proximity shield, you got ice shot mobs, so there's shit on the ground constantly from the Arctic Breath. You've got these guys that do a ton of damage. While other dudes are slowing you down, you've got fucking those lightning trappers that are able to shock you. It's a hard zone to deal with. So I definitely, a big mistake was trying to hit that level 28 so much here. And instead, you know, I could have just ran through Upper Scepter without killing anything, and I would have been fine to farm Dried Lake, and it would have taken me like a minute, maybe a minute and a half of farming Dried Lake to get all the EXP that I've gotten in this zone. But instead, I took like 6 minutes or something to get through Upper Scepter, which is just never ever worth it. Hey, Betamax. It's never ever worth it. And yeah, here just make sure you've got enough lightning and fire resistance. There's really no cold resistance outside of the Dominus totems, but we will be basically skipping that stage. So you can see I fucked those guys up really bad. It's very tricky. Make sure to set yourself up so that you always kill her really fast when she's past 50%, because that's when the other dude spawns. And this other guy, the Reaver, he can actually have a screen-wide Reave with a high crit chance that will just insta-kill you. So this is the controversial part that I talked about that's a little bit of a cheese. You can see that I'm also trying to keep up my LA overload constantly. If Dominus, oh, you actually can't see him because of the thing, but if Dominus is not in your line of sight when you spawn, you're actually able to off-screen him without him attacking you. So you can see that he doesn't see me because there's the thing in the middle, and I can't target him, but I can target the area next to him, which you know, makes me deal damage to him while he's incapable of moving. And you can do that with anything in any class, and it's super nice. You can do that with a lot of bosses. You can do that with anything in the game that with anything in the game, really. That's just how mobs are. If you're incapable of killing certain bandits, you can use that to hide behind a tent and off-screen them. It's very, very, very nice. I go to town here, I've got 1 TP, I'm trying to face tank. You know, we didn't hit level 28, we didn't get a proper level 28 chest piece, so the second fight is actually a little bit more difficult than it should be. You can see that I do have a chest piece right there, and I'm just not high enough on probably levels or dexterity to equip it. And yeah, it should have been a ranger run. Yeah, the storm cloud. You can see that I'm a little bit YOLO here. I'm a little bit YOLO. Evaded that one ball there. That could have hurt. Drop a bunch of stuff from him. But we're you know, we're pretty well geared outside of the sockets at this point. We've been really focusing on our gear. That results in a pretty slow Dominus kill. Really, I could have cut this by like 8 minutes, considering the Adrenaline Quicksilver, the second Quicksilver, obviously. We could have cut this run by a lot, but It just was not meant to be. And also what's ironical is that we hit level 28 off of Dominus, so that's, you know, a little bit of salt in the wound. Here, I'm going to start picking up some life nodes. I like to, if I'm doing a permanent league, I like to have around 800 life when fighting normal Malachi. Otherwise, I just don't exactly feel safe. I've only ever died once to any Malachi ever this entire time that I've been racing and playing and everything. So it's a pretty simple fight once you understand it. But you know, you do need certain breakpoints just so you don't fuck up that much. Yes, it's very much pre-recorded. Yeah, we're just trying to get EXP. We're trying to get that level 30 or 31 to start progressing, to be sure that we will not be overly penalized. The reason why like a lot of people fuck up with that, right? It's not just I can be 10 levels under the zone and then I will benefit from killing that level mobs. God damn, that's hard for me to say. And get all the full EXP that they grant, because obviously the higher the level of the mob, the more EXP they give as a base. But if the difference between you and the level of the zone is too big, out of the clarifications that I've given before, you will get penalized a lot. It's a big penalty. So you have to be sure to not be under-leveled. So we're constantly fighting that big thing, right? So level 25 would have been heavily under-leveled. Level 26 is still kinda to do this. But level 27 is totally fine. And we did hit that level 28. Talk about going to the wings and guaranteed boost for the plebs, of course. I don't think you have to worry about that really at all. So yeah, now the most interesting part, the dried lake. So because we were so focused on EXP, we've wasted a lot of time. However, we do have the EXP now. We could have gotten it more efficiently, but this is where we're at. We will be hitting level 29 soon, which makes it so that we don't have to farm dried lake all that much, but I will be doing a full circle and maybe a little bit more. I don't remember. You know, there's a breach there too. Breaches in dried lake are pretty sick if you're able to actually fight mobs properly. I'm fucking around with my gear. Oh yeah, I had the conk effect still. That's why my my thing just wasn't doing all that well. And yeah, you know, this whole time I could have had a 4-link. Considering the amount of weapons that I have and the fact that I'm still using a +1 as one of my weapons is really tilting, because if you would have a 4-link or a 3-link outside of your weapon with the right colors, then that is a ton of damage, a ton of time saved. But it just kind of wasn't meant to be. I eventually get a 4-link somewhere in this run, which sparks a way too early flameblast switch. But I just decided to YOLO it. Wasn't exactly worth it, but I'll talk about it when that happens. And yeah, we're just trying to get some EXP here. Trying to get as much EXP as we can so we don't have to make another circle here. And still have enough EXP to fight our boy Comb and Davresso. Hey Ninette. See, I'm trying to get some gear. I get 10 MS boots, you know, but they're better than the very starter boots that we've got, because they've got some stats on them at least. So we're gonna use those. You can have even, I believe 25 MS boots here at this point already. Definitely 20 MS boots. I don't know if it's not even 25. So that makes a huge difference. You know, a big difference between this run and my witch run, for instance, under 6 hours level 70 thing, was the fact that on the witch I had 30 MS boots, and on this I had very late 20 MS boots. On the witch it was like very early 30 MS boots, which made a huge difference when progressing through Cruel and all that sort of stuff. because Cruel generally is the easiest difficulty, because you already reap the benefits of having a ton of movement and having a ton of damage. But it doesn't hurt nearly as much as Merciless does, yeah? I knew them. Yeah, I think I decide here that we've got enough EXP, and I just want to kill Dom. I do switch to the Flameblast for the single target here. Again, this was quite experimental, what I was doing. I am using a Flameblast. I'm using a 3-link firestorm right now with a 3-link Flameblast totem on a +1 with conk effect. Trying to keep that flammability up just so I'm able to ignite him with the Flameblast. And it's putting in quite a bit of work, actually. It's very nice damage. He is slowly dying, but also the Flameblast, obviously not that smart, doesn't hit him all that much. And yeah, get confused a little bit with my portal scrolls here, but it is a-okay. So in terms of gearing, what we're really focusing on is getting high enough level for that chest piece, I believe, or dexterity for it. We're focusing on making sure that we have sapphire rings that allow us to fight the Reso, because the Reso is a real scare if you don't over prepare for him, like blind totem, using a defensive curse, having capped cold resistance, having, you know, at least 600 life. It can be a pretty big scare. So you have to make sure that you have all of those things in check, and that is something that you start preparing for even in early Act 3. And the same goes for Comb, except it is fire resistance. So you could see before that when I was selling that iron ring, you can get different rolls on the ruby ring that you get out of the iron ring, and that's based off of both items. So if you have a iron ring, you can try to vendor it with a glacial hammer, and it's going to give you 21, for instance, and you can implicit. Or you can try to vendor it with flame totem, like I think I did with flame totem, and in that case it gave me 22. Obviously not particularly lucky, but you know, it makes a difference. So always make sure that if you have multiple gems, you try to look for the highest explicit, for the highest implicit you can possibly get. Got a scary fucking mob there. Let's run out. I don't even know. Subscription got cancelled. What the fuck? What the fuck indeed? And yeah, we will be killing a lot of mobs here. We want to make sure that we are like level 33 at least for Harvest. And that guy is scary as fuck, by the way. He has a really long range Sunder Glacial Cascade type of attack that hits you if you run with it. So do keep that in mind. And those little circles on the ground, they don't seem that scary, but they will destroy you. And here we used the same trick. I didn't have Wisdom Scrolls, so I just made sure that I don't get frozen. Therefore, I put up a TP, click the TP so it TPs me out, and then I spring the chest. And even if I'm frozen, it's still going to continue to TP me out of the instance. And that was an Arcanist too. We dropped the fusing. Fusings are pretty useful. Pretty useful. Pretty not bad. Did you run Grandad Crab and Fergrace before Merville? Missed it. No. I don't bother with that until I have like a large amount of mobility. So here you can see what I was talking about before with the alteration. We're trying to get that instant flask. We got a curse, and there we go. There's a bubbling flask. Huge boost to your defenses to have something like this if you have the reflexes for it. It's a lifesaver. I mean, it can double up your life pool essentially, yeah? So it's a huge lifesaver. Definitely something you want to waste, you want to use some alterations on. You know, oftentimes I pick up a abundance of items despite having all the gear I need. In this run, I just ended up with a lot of alterations because I ID'd a lot of items with no success. But normally you would have an abundance of transmutes, and you want to pick up every single Colossal Flask you find. and transmute it. And even if it doesn't roll anything, you know, that's some alteration shards out of it. You still might want to use the Colossal Flask, and then every now and then your transmute will hit an instantaneous flask, and that's super cool. So we hit a shrine here. Also, I'm looking for the spirit. The reason why I am looking for the spirit is because we need the EXP, first of all. So killing mobs over here, even though you have to backtrack a lot, is still very much worth it. Second thing is that the spirit is a skill point, and we're on a tight schedule in terms of skill points because we want to pick up some life notes, we want to increase our survivability, but we also want to continue to move through the tree to get more AoE. And the last big factor is we want the 2 respec points that we get out of it on top of everything. The reason for that is that we will be changing the layout of our skill tree soon. We will be, instead of going through the middle nodes between Templar and Witch, we will go through Light of Divinity and travel. Maybe I'll show this real quick. There's nothing much going over here. So right now I had these nodes, but instead I will travel through Light of Divinity because these 2 points are basically equal to these 2 points. But we will gain access to Purity of Flesh, and we will be picking up explosive impact anyway. So this point is totally worth it. Nothing major going on here, so yeah. Just so you have an idea of what we're planning with the skill tree, Light of Divinity is cast speed, it's spell damage. I didn't pick it up earlier because it doesn't double dip. But yeah, it's cast speed, it's spell damage, it's strength, which can be a pretty big factor too. I think in this run I actually fucked up because I should have respec Devotion. I think throughout this entire run I actually didn't. Instead of specking through the Traveling Jewel nodes, you spec into Devotion, and then that way it's the same amount of points, except you can't get to Ancestral Totem nearly as fast. Also, another big thing that I forgot about here until a little bit too late, I guess chat reminded me. I'm trying to get a 3-link here, I don't quite get it. We still have that 2-link action going on, you know, so not quite the case. It does have the right colors for our flameblast, and even now, despite the +1, I deem my self-cast firestorm is just not enough. So I want to, instead of having the +1 that only benefits my flameblast totem, I want to make sure that my firestorm also reaps the benefits of a offhand. So I drop a socket just so I can do enough damage with the firestorm totem. Yeah, you can also skip the point. There's no necessity in doing any of the side quests for the skill points or anything like that. If it's efficient, you do it. If it's not efficient, then you don't do it. It's not efficient anywhere, in my opinion, outside of the spirit in normal, the skill point in Cruel Act 2, and then the bust in Act 2 in Cruel, and then in Merciless it's basically the same thing as it is in Cruel. And then yeah, obviously the spirit in Cruel is also worth it. Pretty much always, especially if you have an idea of where to go on the layout. So you can see that I pick up the waypoint, I go to Duresa's Dream first. I think we're level 32 here, so we're doing pretty okay. This is a level 37 zone, so what I talked about before comes into play. The numbers on that aren't exact, but it is you being 3 levels under the zone with +1 level of your character every with +1 level of the zone every 16 levels of your character, right? So at level 16 we would be 4 levels under the zone. At level 32 we will be 5 levels under the zone. And that's basically what we are doing. We are level 32 in our level 37 zone, which is 5 under. And the plan here is to just get to the waypoint, pick up the waypoint, because the zone past the waypoint, the zone with the waypoint is a level 38 zone. So if we do not hit 33 here, we will be too low and we will be penalized by like 30%, maybe even more than that. So we gotta make sure that we're doing well there. I am going quite slow. My setup is pretty awkward right now. I've got this firestorm totem and this I've got this flameblast totem that really isn't doing anything, and I've got this firestorm that really isn't doing enough because we don't have a 4-link and all this. So that's a really big struggle. All of this could have been done much faster, but it just did not come together. And yeah, another thing is why I do this is because generally the rest of zone is easier. Generally, the higher level you are, the more survivability you've got. And generally, this zone also grants more EXP because it kind of forces you to kill mobs, while the comb zone, it doesn't force you to kill mobs. You can run past them, but they're also really fucking scary. So you want to make sure that you have a lot of fire resistance. With here, we don't really need any specific resistance. And with the instantaneous flask, even these pits are quite simple to deal with. The problem is that, yeah, I mean, I'm constantly... That flameblast totem was way too awkward. It wasn't really doing anything, so I switched back to the firestorm totem, but it's still on a 2-link, so... you know, it's big. We've been using a chest piece for so long, but this chest piece is so bad. Doesn't have any life, any resistance. All we're using it for is just the links. Big ass, fucking thick time waster. But the big part, again, of racing is adapting to what you're offered with. You always have to know how to adapt, and that also is the case for solo self-found, knowing what you need to do with what you're presented. So you guys are talking about some random stuff, so I guess we'll just continue talking. I don't know, the next boss, he deals like partially physical, partially fire damage, so fire resistance is also helpful against him. You don't want to stand on his cyclone or he will kill you just about instantly. And even the Sunder can do a lot of damage, the Sunder that he uses. So be careful about him, definitely don't disregard him. And you know, if you don't have a well-equipped to deal with the situation character, you might also be overrun because he can spawn 2 sets of blue mobs in a row, and then that way, you know, you're fighting him, you're fighting essentially what is like 8 blue packs at the same time. It's a ton of EXP, but you can get easily overrun, and it's hard to recover from something like that, and you might be forced into resetting your run. So do keep that in mind. Also, Flash Moons, thank you for the 14 months, man. I appreciate the support. So we do get to him. You want to keep that flammability up, which I don't do for whatever reason. I am keeping up the flame totem. I am keeping up my overload. You can see I'm always using that Orb Storms whenever I need more damage, and fully utilizing my instantaneous flask. Always topping off my HP. Always using my instant flask whenever, or both of my flasks really, whenever I'm about to kill a whole bunch of mobs. Just so I know that my flask will be coming back from the mobs that I'm killing, and my HP is always topped off. The thing that I didn't talk about before that I was supposed to is, and what I forgot about, is Stone Golem. When you hit level 34, you can pick up, or you can start using Stone Golem, you can pick it up earlier before entering the mines. Stone Golem is fucking big. Like, it's a big deal. I failed a lot of runs because I didn't have it. And the more I started using it, the more it really trivializes a lot of the very difficult stuff like the Resto and like Comb, due to the... You can see that I still have this nice chest piece. I actually used this chess piece until until level 70. A normal chess piece from Act 3. I used it later, but I just did not have the links right now. I could not spec into what I wanted to do, and we're just on that struggle for that right now. I think I also forget the spirit over here. I don't know why. Oh no, I go back to Act 3 for something. What's going on here? Ah, I get a belt because I didn't really roll a belt all that well. I'm trying to roll it here. Nothing really good works out. Tried to get a rare belt. I would have chaosed it. And we're getting an anger because we're just not dealing enough damage. Now we're gonna finish this run on the normal. It's way too much talking. We get the spirit. We're moving closer to Ancestral Bond. Just in case. Just in case. Normally I would pick up Shamanistic Fury because it's got totem placement and the totem is a bunch of our AoE. But in this case I kind of messed up my skill tree a little bit. I think the correct way to do this was to not rush Ancestral Bond, go through Devotion, pick up Shamanistic Fury, and then focus on Ancestral Bond later, because really self-casting Firestorm is with like a side totem is really the way to do it, in my opinion, all the way up until when flameblast totems start being worth it, and they're not really worth it until you're like level 45-ish, maybe even 50-ish, with a silver flask. It's a pretty freaking big deal that you've got a lot of cast speed. Without that, you will struggle. You're gonna deal a lot of damage, but you're not gonna have all that much AoE. You're not gonna have a whole lot of cast speed. Mobs will dodge you. Bosses will dodge you. If you're not hitting things, then you're not stunning things. If there's mobs hitting your spell totem, then they're stunning your flame blast. Therefore, you know, not allowing it to cast properly. And it's a big struggle. But in this case, we kinda got lucky from what I remember. We got lucky in our misplay and unluckiness. So this whole time I've been struggling with having the links and really having the right weapons and being able to equip the right items, not having enough sockets for that. But we get to a point, I think pretty sure, where I find a 4-link. And that 4-link changes everything, and I decide to YOLO switch into Flameblast totems. A little bit too early. There you go. I think that's our 4-link. Actually wasn't sure. Yeah, Crusader Helmet 4-link. We can chrome this shit into the right colors for us. And that will allow us to use a new chess piece, use a new offhand, not have to use so many sockets on 2 different damage setups. Opens up our other abilities to be supported by faster casting, and generally it's a lot more comfortable. Sadly, we're forced into doing it because it is the better option between what we're doing now and what we would normally have. And I can see that I get a really good roll. I hit the 27 cold and I augment 47 life, which is fucking crazy. I later on through the run regal this helmet, but that's way deeper into it. And yeah, we go for it here, man. We go for it. We equip the helmet. You can see that I go back for the spirit. I get that respec point. I get that point. And we go deep, man. There you go. Everything is equipped there. The conk effect for the single target. We switch out our chess piece. You know, we go from like 80 evasion to 250 or something with life and double resist. Low rolls, but it's still quite good. And we're begging the Lord that this is actually going to work out. Like I said before, in my opinion, this is not the right time to switch. I don't think it's a bad idea to switch into Firestorm totems, but Flameblast totems are definitely not there yet. And I also fuck up my bindings here. What the hell did I do? Yeah. The thing that is very good about Flameblast totems is that they do not actually require almost any mana. I will be struggling with mana. That's like not really your guys' concern, since I won't be doing the commentary that deep into it. If you want to see it, you can watch the original VOD. But with flameblast, the cool thing is that you do not struggle with mana, because flameblast is a channeling ability, therefore it's got a low mana cost that you have to use constantly, right? But if you put it on a totem, you just have a low mana cost. And that makes it so that you don't have to use a mana potion, which allows you to use another flask, possibly a resistance flask, a silver flask, a granite flask. All of those things are pretty big. Yeah, I might do a run where I actually ascend and everything in the future. We'll see. We shall see. Yeah, Firestorm Totem isn't the best thing ever because of the way it targets. It targets the nearest mob to itself, and it continues to cast Firestorm until that specific mob is dead, the one that's closest to it. So the benefit of Firestorm is that you can, you know, cast it once, and due to the duration of the ability, it will just stay there for a little bit and it will kill all the surrounding mobs. While on a totem, it's kind of dumb like that. But if you have enough AoE, it can work out. It's the same principle for any totem ability. It's just that with Firestorm, due to the delay of it just taking its time to kill the mob, it just overkills. With Flameblast totems, it's a little bit better, you know, because sure, the totem still has that delay, but it gives mobs time to gather around the totem efficiently, while with this, oftentimes you're going to stun the mobs that are surrounding it because you're still kind of hitting mobs on the outside, and they're not going to get close enough in the circle, and if they're not close enough, if they're on the edge, then the firestorms aren't hitting them as frequently. It's kind of it's kind of awkward like that. But it is still significantly better than what we were doing prior to this, because it allows us so much more flexibility with using something like anger, with using a different weapon, with using the chess piece that we've been looking to use for the longest time. And the biggest hope was that, you know, with elemental overload being so accessible now, because all we have to do is just curse an elemental overload, and after that we're just placing totems that basically do their own thing, our single target will go up by a lot. And it does. You could see that we were before struggling with bosses. Here it was a pretty clean freaking fight. The flame totems, the flame blast totems only need to hit the boss a couple times. We do equip the conk effect, and they really kick some major ass. Yeah, this is very nice. They're very nice. Our single target would definitely be a lot shittier with the other setup too. Yeah. Do the heralds work for totems? So the way totems work is anything that works on you works on the totem. Yeah. Totems are an extension of your character. If you get slowed down, your totems get slowed down. If you increase your damage, you increase your totem's damage. For the most part, anyway. Would you ascend in this case? Yeah, like I explained before, I do it when I've got 700 life and I curse Enfeeble on hardcore. Is usually when I do it. That's the ballpark. So here I don't switch out to the flame blast. I instead just continue to use this. There's just too many ads here and too many things stunning my totems, so the firestorm actually sort of works out. And these dudes die pretty fast. And then yeah, it's on to the one of the most difficult fights of normal, if not the most difficult fight, which is the Resso. We are pretty properly equipped for the Resso. You can see that I still don't have any Sapphire Rings equipped. You can see that I equipped the Flame Blast because, yeah, our boy the Resso is a risky motherfucker. I'm not quite sure what I'm doing here. Oh, yeah, okay, this is when Chav reminded me of the Stone Golem. So the Stone Golem is a big deal. This guy taunts, this guy regens, he regens you, he's tanky, he's very tanky. So he is a big deal. And having him from level 34 will make a world of a difference here. I think I also go back for control destruction here. No, the second faster casting, like I said, it opens up a lot of flexibility. That's what we pick up now. We go for it. I clicked the wrong waypoint, but that's okay. You know, a little bit more mobility. If we get stunned or something, you can always flame dash away. It's better than running away or something like that. Does the Ice Herald explosion happen off totems? No, because that needs to be your effect. So that's why I said kind of for the most part. Yeah, we're trying to keep him on top of the totems, just so we're always hitting. Obviously, he moves around a lot. You can see that he's really good at dodging our totems. But the Stone Golem, you know, face tanking that shit, this guy would almost kill us instantaneously. But our Stone Golem does not give a shit. We've got flammability on him. And you can see that just like that, with Elemental Overload, with just one hit, he pretty much loses the quarter of his life, which triggers the next phase. And the Golem's constantly putting in work, keeping him in one place. And it makes the fight so much easier if you just dodge the swords on the ground. Very easy. A lot of people struggle with this fight, but with our current setup, it worked out pretty okay. Not too many issues there, and we are moving on. Our time is not great due to a lot of the things I talked about before, and due to the possibly too early switch, but better in our case switch. You can see that I have to mess around with my gems quite a bit here, but it's all for the greater good. I think I'm testing flameblast totems here already. Yeah. That's also a little bit early, but I figured that it might work out just because of the layout of this zone, from what I can remember. And for the most part, it is working out. It's alright. It's nothing crazy. It is slightly less safe, I would say, than firestorm totems. Looking at this from this perspective now, it is very difficult to judge if you're always making the right decision or the wrong decision when you're in the moment. But looking at this, probably sticking with the firestorm totems would have been a little bit better still. Without a silver flask, it's quite a pain in the ass to deal with this, because we just don't stun, and these mobs do a lot of damage, you know. That guy is gonna do a lot of damage. Do you think cast damage taken decoy totem is suicide, or does it help? It doesn't work, so you can't really use it. In the past you were able to use it, but not anymore. They changed it a couple years ago. Like 2 years ago? So yeah, we're trying to get piety. We're in the belly. We're trying to get through this as fast as possible. We are doing very well on levels from what I remember. I think I want to say even 35 here, 34 or 35. Whatever we lost in terms of density in the first 3 acts, we definitely made up in Act 4. Yeah, 35 is what we hit here, which is very good because this is a 39 zone. So instead of being 5 under, we're 4 under. Obviously, any levels that we are over what we want to, where we want to be, as long as we've killed mobs efficiently, is good because it's gem levels, and gem levels are a lot of damage. Something that was really pissing me off about this early switch was the fact that I did not expect it, and therefore, because we are put in such an unusual situation, I do not have Shamanistic Fury. The totem placement speed is huge. The double dipping damage from Shamanistic Fury for the ignites, it's huge. It makes a world of a difference, and we don't have it, and we won't have it for a while. Obviously, on top of that, if you're using Flameblast totems, AoE is huge. So the AoE gem at 38 will change a lot. And again, you can watch that in the full 6-hour run, or 5:52. Spoiler. You won't be able to see it here. And yeah, Piety. I don't think I do anything cool. You can jump through Piety's beam, by the way, but I think I just completely obliterate her. You can see Elemental Overload triggers almost immediately. She's getting those flammability hits, you know, she's ignited, I'm throwing the fire traps. A lot of people forget that if you pick up Ancestral Bond, you can't deal damage yourself. However, your traps are not considered your damage. Therefore, you can still use traps. And if you're not spec'd into totems, like I'm not, I don't even have Shamanistic Fury, all the damage that I'm delivering through my totems, I can also deliver through traps. To the point where, you know, having a 4-link fire trap, if you find like a chance to ignite or something, for instance, it's a ton of damage. A conk effect, controlled destruction, fire trap with chance to ignite, or just YOLOing it without that, it is a lot of damage in normal. It makes a huge difference, but that's not what we went for here, because we were already struggling way too much with the sockets. Yeah, we're just looking for our dudes. I think I'm still using conk effect here. There we go. There's the conk effect in. Trying to get those ignites. Most of these fights are pretty easy. You can see a big fucking shot. Even without the elemental overload, that ignite is just destroying, even without Shamanistic Fury. So that's the really big benefit of switching too early. But it would be more damage if it was on a totem and then self-cast also, because we don't have that Shamanistic Fury. And in general, self-cast, the reason why it's better to self-cast is because we are relying on an ignite. So if we have good enough gear, I think I'm swagging it out here, looking for my demonic flameblast. Due to the way double dipping works, and due to your spell totem having a less multiplier on it, if you're self-casting, sure, you can attack more frequently, and that increases the chance of you igniting the target. However, when you do ignite it, it's significantly less damage, not to mention the fact that instead of using not only the less multiplier that you get from spell totem, you could use a link that is beneficial. It makes for absurd single target damage. We're talking like flameblast with this sort of gear on a crit with elemental overload. I say on a crit so that it ignites, yeah? With flammability on the guy, it will like one-shot Malachi. It's just rare. So if you're playing something like Shadow, you know that feeling, you know. If you're racing a Shadow and you're using Flame Blast for single target, which you would, it is just so awkward because you don't do any damage, and then you finally hit a big fucking ignite, and it just instantly dies. And yeah, generally that's the better way to do things, especially if you get lucky with finding something like Chance to Ignite or something like that. I think I go back for the Purity of Ice. I never actually used this. I used Purity of Lightning throughout most of this run, and I still never really get my Lightning to a satisfying point, my Lightning resistance. But yeah, all of these fights are quite easy for totems. I'll maybe talk a little bit about the Malachi fight, since a lot of people think that the Malachi fight is a lot harder than it actually is. It's not that hard. Fucking Banjuro. Go to hell, Benji. Yeah, the Malachi fight really isn't that complicated. I think a lot of people run into problems with it because they try to stay away from Malachi no matter what. Where the easiest way to fight Malachi and Izaro is if you are close to them, actually, because it forces patterns in their attack that are a lot less damage heavy. So if you're close to him, or if you have a golem close to him, if you're placing totems, the reason why I place these totems like this is because I wanted to start charging on the piety. But the closer you've got things on him, the more he will use melee abilities. And then the only range that you have to stay at is for you to just be able to see him. And that's very simple because his attacks just don't have that much range. And he also has on the second phase, he has a... I don't know how to describe it. Like a combo attack. Kind of like a wild strike thing that he will use very frequently if you're close to him. So you can see I'm placing totems. That's what it is. It's like a triple combo attack that actually is very, very slow and very easy to dodge. So you're trying to trigger that as much as possible, and the tentacles are the same thing. The tentacles are partially cold damage, so they will chill you. They will slow you down, but they're just so easy to dodge. And they don't do enough damage to stun you either, so you can flame dash through them just about every time. Another big problem for people in this fight is, you can see that I'm always trying to keep him on top of my totems. I lost the golem there, but I'll be making it back soon. Another big thing about this fight is the red shit on the ground, right? These things. So these things they deal half and half fire and physical damage. And the big thing about them is that they have a high crit chance. So a lot of people run through a couple and they're taking no damage, but when one of them crits, they do a lot of damage. But what people don't know is that you can destroy them. They're not a trap per se. You can't destroy them with AoE damage like flameblast or arc or something like that. They do not have a hitbox. But if you place something over them, they will blow up. So you can throw fire traps at them, which I do a couple times throughout the fight, and you can place totems on top of them, and that will destroy them because they will deal damage to whatever that is. In case of a fire trap or any trap, you know, it doesn't really do anything because it's a trap, so it's got its own HP. Yeah. And that's really just about it. I don't know. I hope this was informative. Hope this helped out some people. If you're watching this on YouTube, thanks for watching. And if you're not watching this on YouTube, let's continue the stream. We'll be doing more stuff like this. I'll be doing more runs with different characters. Obviously, when Fall of Orieth happens, we'll be doing a lot of research into speedrunning and racing and all that sort of stuff. And yeah, hopefully that's going to be a lot of fun, and it will really change up the meta. And we can all learn together how to level fast. Yeah.